right. Okay. Let me know if the sound is good or if I'm too loud. All right, welcome everybody to yet another edition of the Rough Report with Jimmy Ruffian and Nat. I just realized I didn't turn on one of my lights. I'm gonna have to do that. We look all dark and dim, like it's a cave in here. That's why I got that light. Ooh, nice fade out. There we go. All right. Oh, pause. Thank you.
My headset's not on.
It's not. Now it should be.
And my mic is on. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Because I noticed Nat's voice is much quieter than mine naturally. But when I was watching last week's show, I was like, oh my God, she's so much quieter compared to me. So I've tried to turn my mic down a little bit and hers up a little bit, and I hope that works.
To accommodate for myself. You're plugging in the light?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we are going to get into election talk since the election is tomorrow. And I just did a quick poll of the youth populace of the 18-year-old demographic, and they didn't know that the election is tomorrow. So if you know any 18-year-olds, let them know and make sure they know how to vote.
Our teenage niece, who just became old enough to vote.
Yeah, like this is her first opportunity for a federal election.
Yeah. Oh my God, there's a sound for it. Oh my God, I renewed the chat box right there, so you can now see your chat.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I didn't realize it made a sound. I hope it doesn't do that every time.
Yeah. This is actually like a painter's gown, and I use
a schmuck.
A smock, yeah, and I use it as pajamas because we film from our basement, so I just prefer to do it in pajamas because I have so many cute ones, and so I'm just like, no one else gets to enjoy my pajamas. I can use them on my podcast.
Yeah. So our 18-year-old niece is been staying here with us. She's got her own place now. She's leaving us the first of the month. Yeah. She did not know. Her and her friend did not know that the election was tomorrow. So.
So don't take for granted that everyone
don't take that for granted, evidently.
Yeah, so like I
living in this house with us.
Yeah, so we've
somehow
like let them down.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, I mean I do. Like, you know, she's a busy girl. She's oot and about and running all over the place. And so like, and I had a car ride with her to pick up her stuff from her old apartment, and I didn't bring it up. So the mea culpa, my fault.
Yeah.
So just tomorrow. I know that a lot of us take for granted that we live in echo chambers, and that maybe an extent with a particular demographic, but don't take for granted that everyone you know has voted and understands that tomorrow is election day. Remind everybody, please and thank you.
Yes, that's all I had to say. I have nothing to add to that. Well said.
All right, that's the end of our show.
All right. Yeah. Honestly, the short form of our show is yes, please go vote tomorrow. That is essentially what we are after here and trying to tell you. Like,
obviously, there's people that we prefer you not vote for. And we will go into those details. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's a democracy. And so you get to make whatever good or bad choices you want.
Next election, my oldest will be able to vote.
Nice.
That's exciting. I remember my first election, federal election, was, I believe it was when Stephen Harper was elected in 2006. Because I would have been 20. Yeah.
And that's when he got disillusioned.
Yeah. Well, I think I was a little bit disillusioned before that. I definitely had a lot more faith in the electoral system, I would say, at that time.
I remember coming up to the first election I voted in. It was my first year of college, and I didn't know anything about politics, like of the various political parties. And so I voted for the Green Party because the candidate's name was McGregor. And I just enjoy the name McGregor. So That's how.
Isn't McGregor that UFC guy that like?
Hey! He doesn't stand for McGregor.
Okay.
It's still a delightful name, and he certainly wasn't in the anywhere in the media.
I just assume everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say that. She certainly did. So,
and
we're not even UFC people. I haven't watched a fight in a long time.
Well, people just know him because he's a cunt.
Yeah.
Anyways, so he wasn't on the scene in 2000, so that had no bearing. For the next election, I recall saying something to the effect of, because again, this is we're very much about allowing people the grace and the space to learn, because for the first election that was after that, I was talking with my best friend and said that I was going to vote for the Conservative Party because I was caught into the rhetoric of like, oh, well, it's time for a change, isn't it? And they immediately looked at me and they're like, no.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
And I'm like, oh.
I legitimately think that is like a thing with the Canadian populace where they just go, like there's a certain type of voter that's just like, yeah, these people have been in power long enough. It's just will be healthy for democracy to just have the other guys have a go for a while. That's what we should do. There seems to be a weird attitude about that amongst some. I don't know how big that percentage is, but the way I see some people talk about it, where they go, it's time for a change.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, change to what?
Yeah.
And how much is it going to change? Change to what capacity?
Yeah.
They don't know, but it's just time for one.
Yeah.
So
it's like going from like, typically during my lunch, I like to have a peanut butter and jam sandwich, but for a change, I'm going to eat this live grenade.
Yeah.
For a change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And well, like in saying just in of itself, you know, I'm going to vote for Conservatives for change. I find that to be an extremely oxymoronic statement. I mean, if anything's going to change, it's just going to intensify the things that we're already complaining about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just don't see how that's much of a change, really.
Yeah. And that's the thing, too, is that so if with your loved ones, and I don't recommend, I know that I, in the past week or so, have been wading into online circles and talking to people. You don't have to do that to yourself, because I don't think that
Nat hasn't been in that game in a long time. Like I still regularly engage with goobers online just for my own personal entertainment and I guess masochism in a way.
Whereas
I hate myself a little bit.
Yeah, and actually that's how we met, because both of us would like to do that for sport.
We literally met because we would regularly find ourselves in the same threads, dunking on the same sorts of like right wing people. Yeah. So yeah.
And then he had posted on his profile a darling photo of him dressed in a dress with lipstick, and I'm just like, yeah.
I won her over by being
queer,
super woke, keyboard warrior, and totally feminine. And but you can't say that on YouTube.
Well, I can.
I mean, you're allowed to say it. You got the card, but YouTube doesn't know that.
I said it while you were talking, and so like the auto filter should probably not pick it up. Yeah. But yes. Anyway, we make each other gayer.
Yes.
And we like each other because of how gay we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing. But yes, anyway, so I have waded in the past week or so and gotten into conversations, and some of it is just asking people questions like, what specific positive benefit are you looking for? But then also to be an ass and be like, I have neither the time or the crayons to explain anything to you. So like, don't look to me to be like, someone for the tolerant left. I'm not.
Yeah.
I am not part of the tolerant left at all.
Yeah.
Like there was a time, but like, fuck. And we've had this conversation earlier this week, is like, we need to bring back shame. Of people having bad, stupid opinions. We need to bring back shame.
I remember when even like before racists were so publicly emboldened, like I'm going back, I don't know, maybe 15 or so years, right?
Yeah, because like there was a brief better period. Like there was no period in which racism was gone,
where it just wasn't a problem.
But there was a brief period where it seemed better because people felt less comfortable being open about it.
The general public opinion was strong enough. But then once it became like, I think part of the shift there was we were sort of staying blissful in our ignorance because it was so shameful that people who had these racist thoughts or racist opinions maybe didn't say them or engage with them or engage in those types of conversations, right? So once it became a national conversation to say Black Lives Matter, this prompted otherwise not racist people to, hit their ears and went through all that wiring in their brain, and they go, oh, well, white lives matter too. And it's obviously because the even though they've been taught what racism is bad, they didn't understand the nuances of it.
Yeah, they were also taught that racism was over.
Yeah.
And so when you started talking about Black Lives Matter, when you have that like very shallow understanding of what racism is and means, then a lot of people knee-jerked that in to be like, oh, but what about me? And it's like, oh, okay, this is nothing good's gonna come of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing good has come of it. So
and I kind of don't understand why a person doesn't find it embarrassing to say, like, to be the guy at the funeral being like, so what, we're all gonna die, like that sort of me, like, let's turn the attention away from what the purpose is here and worry about what I'm going through.
It's like you know what? It completely left my head and it's gone. So you carry on.
I know. I didn't go the right direction with that analogy, but I think I rounded out to the point.
It's like the All Lives Matter folks go to a funeral and be like, "Why are you celebrating this dead person?" All lives matter.
And it's like. Like how do you not hear yourself, like, or you bust into a cancer patient's room and be like, I need radiation treatment too, what makes you so special, something like that.
Anyway, it's there's a lot of directions to go with that, but anyway, the TLDR is that there was a brief period.
We didn't workshop that before the show, obviously.
We did not, but there's a brief period where things seem to be getting better, and then now everything seems to be getting worse. And the thing is that the conservatives have, and when I say conservatives, I mean like the right. I'm not talking strictly Canada. The
global right.
The global right. Yeah. They have pivoted this and used every opportunity to cash in on the current hardships that we're having. And they're like, you know what caused all of this? Woke and being kind.
Yeah.
We will fix the economy by being able to say the N-word with the hard R.
Yeah. And that's rather predictable, isn't it? Like that, the fact that this still works is what pisses me off, right? Because it's the same old play. Oh, people are getting restless and upset about the economic and classist conditions in society. Well, let's scapegoat to minorities.
Yeah.
And like that should be so obvious to people that that's what they do every single time. Anytime you have this like upward fervent heat towards immigrants and minorities, there's always that economic woe underneath, and they're trying to obviously distract you from the fact that they are the problem, not the immigrants. But it's a total red herring and scapegoat and all of those things.
And here's the thing too, and I want to make it very clear that any issues that you may have around immigration at large, so the immigrant who is coming into Canada, is not responsible for it, and in some ways have been lied to and propagandized to get them into the country. Because what you're seeing, what I've been seeing in a lot of articles is talking about, let's say like immigrants from India who have gone to the GTA for post-secondary education to find out that the schools that they've applied to are a shill. They're just like diploma factories, and they take advantage of people from another continent not knowing how to vet them, as well as like Canadians who are here do. And the same with housing. Like Canadians here, like we understand how bad the housing situation is. When you're coming from another continent, it is extremely difficult to suss out the housing, the jobs, the educational situation. And so you rely on either the post-secondary educational institution that you're applying to provide you with information and ways to, get your living and your part-time employment under control. And if they lead you astray, then you as an individual, you're fucked. You have no power in this situation. So like, you can talk until you're blue in the face about like how much you think that immigration is not working well right now. Don't take it out on the people who've been duped into coming over here under false promises.
Yeah.
So and especially taking into consideration the temporary foreign worker program, which exploits these people, winds up paying them less than Canadian would accept because we understand the economy. Jess, if you're looking for info on immigration, highly recommend Open Borders, The Science and Ethics of Immigration by Brian Kaplan. It's a graphic novel, so very easy learning.
Oh, wow. A graphic novel about immigration. I think that's pretty great. Like is that would you say that's for adults, or is it meant for like younger people, or is it like kind of an all ages thing? Mm-hmm. I'd be curious about that. Mm-hmm. I think just because like, on a very basic level, I remember learning in school, like in kindergarten, diversity is great. I was in a very diverse class, a lot of, not white kids in all my classes growing up. And that was very normal. Mm-hmm. And so, especially as a millennial, to come into this thing now where people my age can be duped into believing this nonsense about immigrants and what they're costing us and how it's a drain on society or whatever that nonsense is. Mm-hmm. And then you can plainly see that, how much the 1% is hoarding wealth, and how intensified that's been over the past few decades. Mm-hmm. And then just believe that stuff about immigration. I really don't understand. I don't understand mm-hmm. where your mind is. Yeah. It's kind of sick.
Yeah. And also, if you're worried about immigration, then you should be worried about the environment and about colonialism and the reasons why people immigrate to Canada and out of their native countries. So don't just look at immigration as like, one person coming here. Look at it in the full picture of like what kind of political climate they're experiencing at home, what kind of environmental catastrophes they're dealing with at home, what kind of famines, what kind of like unemployment rates they're dealing with. So like just to take it as, people come here bad is missing a lot of the point of what imperialist countries like Canada, the US do to drive people out of their countries mm-hmm. and looking for a better life. But then reaching us, and then we're like, fuck you. You're not you're not allowed to have the better life, despite the fact that we have poisoned your country, set up militias to protect our mines, that we're destroying your environment. Like, you get nothing, fuck off. Anywho, I think that we should go into. I sent you a few links.
Yes.
So let's talk.
Interestingly enough, there's the Canadian 338 Canada, which is the Canadian polling website.
Now, keep in mind, so 338 Canada, they're nonpartisan. This election, it has just switched over.
Ooh.
So previous.
I forgot about that. I still forgot to switch those screens around. So, you got to see the infinity. You looked into the void and it stared back.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I keep forgetting because on my old computer, I had the monitor set up the other way around. So when I got Streamlabs on this computer, it remembered all my old settings, but it thinks the monitors are like number 1 and 2 are switched around.
But he won't let me fix it.
Yeah, I haven't fixed it yet.
Yeah,
I just haven't.
Anyway, so 338. That's based on the fact that the previous elections, Canada was split up into 338 electoral districts. This election is 343 electoral districts. So I anticipate 338 to soon turn into 343.
So yeah, according to Philippe Fournier here, I guess he's I'm not sure what his position is, probably head or something, spokesperson, I don't know. But he is representing 338 Canada here. And the attacks on 338 Canada continue today, this time in Eastern Canada. Use the French version of the site, which is up and running.
Yeah, so there's apparently been a DDoS attack. So it's a distributed denial of service attack. This is basically where you have a whole bunch of computers try to access a site simultaneously in order to overwhelm it. And so if you go over, let's check and see if the 338. I'm stuttering. Let's go over and see if 338 is actually up now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did try to. Oh, yeah.
Well, refresh.
Yeah. We'll try to refresh. Let's do this live on the air. All right. Continue.
Yeah. Verify. We are human. But anyway, so this
okay, the
site,
fact that it's already taken this long is kind of giving me a bad feeling.
Yeah, and so if you go over to the Quebec, the French version of the site, effectively what it just does is talk about polling. So if you and they stop giving the updates on the polling 24 hours prior to the election. So I don't know that as of today they're updating it anymore. But what this is useful for is to check your specific riding to see how the polling is. If you think it's a riding where splitting the vote would have a
and this is touching on Jess in the chat's request last week to talk about strategic voting.
Yeah.
So yes, I would say, okay, like just to kind of segue, I guess, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know sometimes how I feel about strategic voting in some sort of moral or ethical sense. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If we're talking idealistically, I'd say you should vote with whatever your heart tells you, kind of thing, with whatever candidate appeals most to your values. Mm-hmm. But I think when we look at the material reality of it, that just doesn't hold up, right? Like there is an obvious, like the electoral system is broken. We're mm-hmm. operating within a broken system.
Yeah.
We can't be, I don't think we have the luxury to be idealistic about that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we have to look at the material reality of it. And the material reality would suggest that keeping the further right party out of power is just the net good. Yeah. That is the best good that we can possibly yield out of electoralism. Out of
this particular election specifically.
Yeah.
Because looking at
the past few, let's be honest,
but let's just say with this one specifically.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just worry with strategic voting, we keep allowing the redshift effect. Yes. So I'm agreeing with you,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So no complaints there. Jess, yes. Worrying for like the lesser evil recognizes that you're still voting for evil. But sometimes right.
And that's the thing. I feel like we don't talk about that. We always talk about it leading up to an election, but after the election is over, it's not a conversation that the greater public continues to have. What are you looking at? You're marveling at this thing.
Like, where should it go?
One of my microphones. Yeah, like, and so I feel like we don't hammer into people that, like, say the Liberals win, right? Okay, the lesser evil one. We're not safe now, guys.
Yeah.
We're not, like, it's not like we just staved off evil for another few years and everything is going to be okay for a little while. I feel like people get a little placated or pacified when the election does turn out to be the lesser evil. Yeah. You know?
And here's the thing is that, like, with the polling and just I'm just going to stick with the polling. With the polling over the past year, showing that the expectation is that, actually, if you can just leave that up, I'm going to use it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I don't have the chat box on this part of the screen, so Jess was just like, I've been strategic voting since I've been able to vote. That's how Trudeau got in. Yeah. I think that's how any conservative and liberal just gets in general, is everybody sort of being strategic, and they're kind of get cold feet about allowing smaller parties to get more seats.
Which is why I brought up about first past the post. But before I get into that, so for strategic voting, just specifically the past year, we've been so worried about, first in the U.S., like, what happens if Trump gets in again, and then the fucking shitting fuck he did. And now look at just the horrific effects of Trump being in office for a second time, and understanding from his first term that there's no breaks. There's no breaks. There's no limits. No one's going to stop anything. And so now, because the Canadian Conservative Party has started following American-style politics, the very valid concern is that Poilievre is chomping at the bit to follow suit. And we can't fucking have that. And so now, with Trudeau stepping down and Carney taking over, the polling going very strongly for Carney, I think that this, outside of other years, I think this is the year where we take that seriously and be like, you know what, strategically, let's get rid of this fucking guy. Because honestly, this is the first time that the Conservatives have been kind of strong in several years, because their leaders keep shitting out. And so now, and I'm hoping that Poilievre loses his seat in his county, I will cackle for days. Yeah. You will just hear echoes of cackling.
Even then, like, I it's kind of weird to me that, like, still Poilievre is the guy. You know what I mean?
He's
like,
such a wiener.
Yeah, he gives me such Andrew Scheer. Yeah. Energy, right? That, and so, like, the fact that he's somehow being picked up as the guy, I think it just shows how generally people are kind of, like, fed up with liberal leadership. And again, that kind of harkens back to what I said at the top of the show about just, like, feeling like you need a change, no matter what that change is, you know? And so, it was, as you just said, extremely smart that they got Carney in there, because that kind of, I think that filled the void for a lot of people. It's change without having to vote conservative, you know?
And so then, sorry, I'm just going to read what Jess is saying. I mean, yes, even Ford of our province has ignored courts before. Yeah, exactly. So we've seen what Ford has done. I don't want to know what another conservative
and I think you're right about if Carney doesn't do certain things like address the housing crisis in some material and meaningful way, and that sort of thing. In a few years, there will be a strong conservative backlash, especially if they get anyone remotely more likable than Poilievre. You know, if they just get a guy with, like, +1 charisma to Poilievre, and Carney doesn't do anything materially meaningful, I think you're absolutely right, Jess, that we will have a problem.
Yeah, and in-laws love Carney. They also loved Harper. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not going to say that Carney and Harper are equal, because I remember the Harper years, and they were bad years. Yeah. They're not the same guy.
Yeah. I think Carney is ultimately a right-wing liberal. Sure. I think.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. but he knows, I think, the temperature. You know what I mean? And what needs to be done in a kind of like in that capitalist framework sense. You know what I mean?
And I feel like I feel like he's traditionally what the general public still thinks that the conservatives mean. I think that Carney embodies that. I think that because the Conservative Party has gone so far to the right, and the general public...
Carney is the classical conservative. Yeah, he's the conservative of yesteryear, the more reasonable one we like to remember.
Yes, so if it were a matter of like voting for, say, Carney versus Trudeau... I'm not even sure if that is accurate. But anyway, I'm going to roll with it anyways, and you can give me shit for it. Yeah. If it was Carney versus Trudeau, then I think that one is further right than the other. And so then we can actually have a conversation of like, oh, like this is, they're not going to be too far different. And so like, maybe if we get in that right guy, it won't be such a big deal. It'll just be like different way of doing things. Whereas with the current Conservative Party, it's not Carney versus Trudeau. It's Carney versus Trump. And I know a lot of people have been trying to distance from that and be like, oh, don't bring U.S. politics here. Bitch, I haven't fucking brought U.S. politics here.
It's already here.
I'm not the one bringing it here.
It's
right?
your...
I'm not the one talking about defunding woke.
It's your Kevin O'Leary's and those freaking people that have done it. And again, I don't know how this isn't a bigger conversation, even amongst kind of conservative-minded people, because they talk about, the globalism or the interference and foreign interference and things like that, and the fact, and like in the elites, the spooky elites that are trying to buy our elections, and all that sort of thing, that they don't seem overly concerned with all the kind of like right-wing dark money that gets funneled into Canada from the United States, because there is this vested interest in manipulating our political outlook on things. And, like there are a bunch of insurance companies down there and up here that would love for the health system to look more like the American one. And they are investing in that. They are putting political money behind that. And why that isn't concerning to even conservatives is a bit weird to me, other than you like the idea of privatized healthcare for some reason. I don't know, as a working class person, why you would think privatized healthcare is why you would like that. I don't know.
Or you've been so bought into the divisive identity politics language that you're like, oh, well.
Yeah, the whole culture war downstream.
Yeah, culture war.
Politics is downstream from culture.
Yeah, they're turning the frogs gay and stuff. Yeah. And so because of that, you've been so radicalized that you decide that to not look into it any further. Yeah. And just be like, oh, well, they want to bring back traditional values. I want you to share that screen.
Okay.
So what I wanted to talk about earlier was, okay, so this is, like I said, this is the Quebec, this is the French version of the 338 Canada. And so the reason why you might want to check this out is, let's say that you're unsure if the strategic voting makes sense for your specific riding. So in a riding such as the top one, there we go, Algonquin, Renfrew, Pembroke, Cheryl Gallant has been the fucking MP for them.
I've heard that
for 20 years.
Cursing this woman's name for years now.
Yeah,
by the way.
She is absolute clown shoes in that specific riding, because the conservative support has been so strong. I would only recommend people try to vote Liberal, because I don't feel like in that riding, and I'm going to postface this in a minute. In that particular riding, I don't feel like people would go for the NDP when they've been conservative for so long. But now let me
I think there's a weird type of conservative that would sooner go to the NDP than the Liberals just because, liberals, you know?
But not in that county. And I lived in that county, and I was very acutely active in politics in that county from about 2005 to 2008. During the years I had lived here before I got a divorce and moved away. Anyway, so I grew up there, and then when I moved back there, I was very, very intimately involved in politics. And from what I've seen, and when I was involved in politics, I was actually volunteering and working with the NDP directly. But what I've seen since then, and this has nothing to do with how quality I can, my perceived quality of the NDP candidates in that specific riding. This is entirely about talking to people and their attitudes who were in Renfrew. They've changed. It used to be Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke, and now it's Algonquin, Renfrew, Pembroke. So pardon me if I fuck that up again. From talking to people there, I think that voting Liberal is the only way to change the color of that riding. And that is from having direct experience there, and that is having 20 years of Cheryl Gallant. Google her. She is so embarrassing. And it would be less embarrassing if she said things like...
She must have the easiest freaking job.
Sincerely does. She doesn't show up to debates.
Just did not do anything.
Literally.
Just do nothing.
Because she keeps
keep collecting your checks.
Well,
Incredible.
For 20 years, she's been starting with Harper. They keep muzzling her because every time she opens her mouth, something insane falls out. She is absolutely one of those, the water making the frogs. So,
they could probably just run a mannequin in her place, and the Conservatives would still get the same number of votes, possibly even more.
But that's the thing. And that is why I specifically say for that one specific county, I would go with strategic voting. I don't think that should be taken across the board across Canada, that everyone should vote strictly Liberal. Yeah. I'm saying in counties like that, this is an area to check and see
if you're in one of those orange strongholds, keep voting NDP.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Hell yeah.
I'm not going to tell Manitoba or Northwestern Ontario to vote Liberal. That's insane. You are strong NDP stronghold.
How do you feel about the NDP has sort of dug a hole in their campaign regarding both the Jessica Wetz situation and Jagmeet saying don't trust a Liberal?
I don't like it.
It's not great.
Yeah,
not great. Strategically on their part, it's confusing. Is what it is, because if you're going to be don't trust a Liberal, then why are you capitulating to all this stuff when it comes to Jessica Wetz and not standing behind her? And I feel like if you're going to run the type of campaign that's going to say don't trust a Liberal, then you better go hard left and take your stand, and don't let them make these bullshit arguments that, Jessica Wetz, she's not perfectly good looking for you in this situation, and then you just cave to that. It's all very it lacks strategy. You don't know what direction he's coming from. It seems like in one place he's trying to take risks, and the other he's trying to be very safe. And I think the NDP in the situation that they're in, they shouldn't try and be that strategic. I think they should be
safe.
Yeah,
honestly,
don't be safe.
Be what people want.
Exactly.
Which is change,
go
which is
far left.
Yeah.
Go far left.
I had someone say that
because their ultimate intention out of any election and what's going to come of it is that they're hoping to work with the Liberals, and they're not really expecting to win. Yeah. They know where they are, right? In that sense. So building a strong coalition with the Liberals is always the ultimate goal in terms of just the numbers that they got. And do the far left stuff. It's not even that far left, but the dental plan stuff, for instance. That I think that is one of the best things that the NDP has fought for over the recent years, and how far they've gotten with that.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that the NDP has made a major misstep in not going full bore left.
Yeah.
Honestly, looking especially in this particular political climate of people asking for change. And someone said to me today that Carney is far left. I'm like, anyway, I
if you think a guy like Carney yeah, if you think anybody really in the Liberal Party in general is far left, you just don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry. I will gladly debate that with you anytime, because I guarantee whatever your basis for believing that is, it's one of two things, or possibly both. You don't know what left and right really is, or you're just straight up pumped full of like crazy wrong information about like how, you know, they're secretly working with Chinese communism or like some other crazy dumb bullshit like that, right? My father-in-law thought Biden was far left when I called him Jim Crow Joe. Yeah,
I laugh.
Like,
so
just
I don't
thinking
cry.
Biden is far left. Like, I mean, this was the guy they touted as like the most pro-labor president, and he still did like some union busting type shit, right?
Yeah,
like he still didn't support workers when you know, strikes were on the line, at least as much as he should have. You know, so.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Okay, so since we're on 3/4 of the way, I want to talk a bit about First Past the Post. I want you to pull up those links that I sent you.
You sent me more? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, here.
Anyway. So the current electoral system that we have right now is First Past the Post. Effectively, what that means is that if there's 100 votes and someone gets 49 votes and the other person gets 51 votes, the 51 votes wins the whole kit and caboodle, and the other gets zero representation whatsoever. So yeah, if you want to share that. So yeah, so there's a Fair Vote Canada. They're an organization who's been pushing for electoral reform for ages. And so if you go to fairvote.ca, this site actually goes into detail about what happens when you have a system such as Canada's First Past the Post. So when a lot of people say that, you know, I voted for Green Party, and that means that my or if they say I want to vote for Green Party, but if I do, my vote won't count. What they mean is that under First Past the Post, unless the Green Party gets the entire seat, then the vote doesn't count. Then it basically just goes into the void, and nothing further comes of it. Now, like even with the way that we fund as a country, political parties, you need to get a certain, and correct me if I'm wrong, you need to get a certain number of seats, not votes, for funding.
I do believe so. Yes.
Yeah, and so like yes, if you're in a riding such as that riding I was talking about with the Pembroke Renfrew County riding, if you vote Green Party, then guaranteed your vote won't count. It'll just go into the void. Whereas if you're voting between red and blue, then your vote has an opportunity to count towards something. Now, if you go a little bit further down here on this page, so just keep going down. Okay, so this is what I'm saying right here is that if you vote for anyone other than the party, then it doesn't matter how close you got. If your party doesn't get the seat, you get nothing, absolutely nothing. And so that's why, for example, in 2007, that link beside it, there was a referendum, and I forgot that it was actually in Ontario, for the mixed member proportional representation, to introduce a system where you had two votes on a ballot. One is for this specific person, and then one is for, sorry, can you go down a little bit? It says right on here, I can't remember the... one for local candidate and one for political party. And so even if your local candidate didn't get in, so let's say that my local candidate is, I vote red because of my riding, but for the party, I vote orange, I vote NDP. Then there's a potential for both your votes to count.
Same here, Jess. That was this was my first provincial election. I think on the show last week I said it was the federal election that they did this, but it was the province.
And I volunteered and I helped with this to try to raise awareness of what this referendum was. It didn't fucking go anywhere.
But most people did not fill out the ballot because they didn't know what it was.
Yeah, and so I tried. So those are some of the kind of alternative systems that are that various countries have, as opposed to just first past the post. And so if a system like the mixed member proportional, if that was if the referendum worked, then they would have had to add extra seats just to cover the parties who got the votes, but not that particular riding seat. So yes, it would have made the government a bit bigger, but more representative based on where the votes went.
Yeah, that would have been good. That would have been nice.
It would have been fucking cool, but we're not allowed to have cool things in this time.
Now, one of the things I wanted to point out is like talking with people about the polls and stuff like that and what they're looking like right now. And a lot of people saying like, I don't really trust this. I don't know if I should believe this. This is a lot closer than what I'd like it to be.
But
that's
also,
for sure.
like, for polling, don't trust it. That's fine. Just vote.
Yeah,
like,
just go and vote.
Honestly.
But like, don't feel safe. But personally, for me, I like looking at the polls to kind of gauge where my anxiety should be at.
Yes, exactly. I'm voting either way, and I understand where and how I'm voting either way. This is just an indicator of like whether I'm gonna sleep tonight and of how big of a weight is on my chest at a particular moment.
So that's what I like looking at this stuff for. Looking still good. Like, but that's not a huge spread, right? So definitely get out and vote. Now, a lot of people, if you're like, sometimes it goes the other way. Like, remember the 2016 American election? I think there's a lot more problems with American polling, especially in regards to the 2016 election. And I tend to trust Canadian polls just in general a little bit more than I would trust an American one. I think the accuracy in what they're reporting and the history of it goes to show. Because the reason I say the history of it is if we're looking at, say the last time the Conservatives had a big win, Stephen Harper, the 2006 election when he first got in. Looking at what those polls looked like, what it bore out was pretty accurate when you're coming up to like the days leading up to that election, because it happened at the end of February or January that year. What we got in the results across this blue strip in the top here is pretty damn close to what most of the polls were saying. Yeah.
And now also so don't live and die in the polls, but specifically talking about the difference between the American federal election and the Canadian federal election, we still hand count our votes. And so there's, and not just that, we have...
I think there was a lot of bullshit in both times Trump has won. There's some shady stuff going down. Like, to put my conspiratorial hat on for a second, I think they got away with some real criminal shit.
Yes. And that's the thing. The difference about Canadian federal election is that it's paper ballots. Every single party, and this is from like the Conservatives, the Liberals, the NDP to the Communist Party, to the Rhino Party, to like all the parties, if you have, you're allowed to have scrutineers to view the counting of the ballots, and the counting of the ballots is done by multiple people. So this isn't like one person shadily like being alone in a room with these ballots and being able to get rid of ballots that they don't like. Like,
got my paper shredder right here. Yeah.
Like that's not a thing. And I know that some people were worried about like, if you use the pencil, then they can erase your vote, and then the Scantron will know the difference or something. There's no Scantron with federal ballots. It's hand counted, and so you can use a pen, you can use a pencil. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not going through a machine. It's hand counted by multiple people, including scrutineers, watching the counting happening. And I think a little bit of confusion is that with the provincial election, they used Sharpies, but the provincial is not the federal. They're different organizations. They're run slightly differently. Like, for example, it looks like the anyway, it's slightly different. So, like, anything that's going on with the provincial election, don't apply it without checking in about how it applies to the federal election. Okay, they're different organizations. They don't cross over. They might have like a conference to check in what people are doing provincially versus federally, but in the terms of like the day-to-day operations, they don't overlap. And so check in about that. Also, in terms of the ID and stuff, so voting at most polling stations ends tomorrow night at 9 p.m. So check your polling station, check ahead of time where your polling station is, because it's too late for you to vote in a polling station where you don't reside. And so, like, for example, my niece, her address, her driver's license and stuff is in another county. But she lives with us, and so we can actually vouch for her in the federal election because we all have ID, and we vouch. It still gets checked, and so people thinking like, oh, it's easy, she can just vote in her home county and then come down and vote here and stuff. It's vetted, it's checked. Like, there's a lot of stuff going in the background about making sure that duplicate votes don't happen. And also, just for your ease of voting, if you got your voter ID card, perfect. Bring that in a single piece of ID to your local polling station. Check ahead of time to make sure that you understand where your polling station is, so you're not running around at like 8:45 p.m. Even if you are running around at 8:45 p.m., so long as you're in line prior to the closing of the polls, they will still take your vote. So if tomorrow, and your employer does need to give you time to vote. They
up to 3 hours.
So start your plans. Like, you haven't voted yet and you're not sure about
I have not voted yet. I'm going to be doing it tomorrow for sure.
Me too. I haven't voted yet either. I'm doing it tomorrow.
And for what it's worth, just because of the area I'm in, like, if I was still in Hamilton, NDP, easy. But here I am going to vote Liberal. A Liberal MP is the incumbent here. So yeah, I'm going to be voting Liberal, unfortunately. But yeah.
But it is what it is, because we don't have ranked ballots or mixed member proportional voting on our federal ballots. There's
and that doesn't mean I support the Liberal Party. To all the left people out there, like, you're co-signing everything the Liberal Party does.
No.
If you vote for them, it's just I feel like you don't understand what a vote is. It's literally just your preference. You're not voting for what your perfect idea is. You're not voting for idealism, right? You're voting for, these are your options. Yeah. Which one do you prefer? Yeah. Prefer is the big thing. It doesn't mean that you co-sign everything that they do. Yeah, the Liberals support, as a party platform, they support Israel. That's abhorrent. But all of them do. And, to kind of quote Sam Cedar here, if you have two candidates and one of them wants to build 10 concentration camps and the other says they want to build 9, I will vote for the one that said 9.
And then fight them anyways.
Yeah. So, like, it's a vote is just simply, these are your options. This is your A, B, C, D, or whatever the case may be. Which one are you picking?
And also, this is the party that you're going to be fighting against, because electoralism, like relying upon
electoralism is broken. We're again, I reiterate that we're operating within a broken system.
Yeah,
here.
and so relying upon your civic duty being once every 4 years, that's not enough. Things won't change for the better if you only do one thing.
I had someone someone that I've known for years get really mad at me and block me because I said that their emphasis on electoralism and kind of like acting like everything hinges on this election, and a lot does. It's serious. I'm not saying that, but I was saying if and this was before Carney was in the picture. Mm-hmm. And I said, I kind of feel like resigning myself to the conservative win and being more concerned with, the people around me, community, and how we're going to weather the storm and how we're going to make it a better tomorrow, and kind of engaging on that level rather than worrying about how this election is going to turn out, because I'm resigning myself to something negative. And they said something to the sense of like, oh, to talk like that is acquiescence, is to give in to the conservatives if that's your attitude about it. And it's just like, no, I'm talking about organizing against them because they're probably going to win, and that's just the reality. And I said, like, yeah, this emphasis on electoralism, as you're talking about it, is pretty liberal. Like, that's a liberalist or liberalism sort of perspective. And they got super mad and called me an asshole and blocked me because they wanted to think of themselves as this very like far left sort of revolutionary thinking person. And it's like, well, then why are you doubting what I'm saying when I'm saying the emphasis on community here? So regardless of how this election turns out tomorrow, even though it would be, I think, objectively very bad if the Conservatives won, like objectively worse than if the Liberals won. Yeah, I think is a better way to put it. So like we're all looking at something bad regardless, right? So get involved with people in your community, politics in your community. Talk to people about the tough stuff. Talk to your friends. Get educated. Get informed in whatever capacity you have to do. Like if there's anything you're wondering about, like I am kind of like a naturally sort of curiously driven person. If there's a question that pops in my head, I kind of want to seek out the answer. So even if that question is, what is critical thinking? For example, how do I decipher good news sources from bad news sources? And how open is my mind to seeing stuff that may necessarily offend my assumptions about the world? How open am I to receiving that type of information and questioning those things within yourself, and again seeking out the answers? Be curious and inspire that curiosity in others, even if it may be a little uncomfortable and awkward.
Because that's the thing, is that like you can't grow and learn unless you ask questions, and a lot of the time you're going to realize you're wrong. I am wrong so often.
Yeah. I'm right. I know what I'm talking about, and I'm right about a lot of stuff, but people who are professional journalists with the utmost of good intentions and pure outlook, and however you want to phrase it, also make mistakes and have to issue retractions, right? Yeah. So be a little humble, I guess, as well.
And that's the thing: value understanding over top of being right.
Yeah.
Right. Like you don't. Let's say that you hold something dear, and then you get new information that contradicts it. We all need to be open to new information, changing our minds. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to listen to some transphobic bullshit and realize, you know what, you're right. These people don't deserve human rights or to be able to pee.
Yeah.
Don't be so open-minded that your brains fall out. Yes. But be open to new information.
Well, I think there's just like a couple things we need to say these are the objective this is objectively wrong. There are certain truths that we have to recognize as fundamental, and I think we're very bad at doing that generally, just as like a species. We have these great philosophical ideas about it. We may even be able to reiterate those philosophical ideas and understand them and communicate them to each other, but do we truly follow through on them? In a lot of cases, people talk a big game about how violence and killing is wrong, but that's, I've heard a lot of politicians talk about how violence and killing is wrong, but they voted to send the bombs. They voted to instigate war.
They're okay
as they're
with
telling
leveling
you,
of Gaza.
as they're telling you how bad violence is and how bad the destruction of property is. So, and then when you encounter that type of hypocrisy on a regular basis, even if you're not super conscious of it, don't have the literal thought to yourself like, oh, that's hypocritical, isn't it? Even just like hearing that stuff on the regular basis, I think you get a little desensitized in a way, and you can kind of check out, and there's certain things you check out from. And I don't know. It sounds so easy to just be more conscious, but I think the best way to do that is to listen to your curiosity, listen to the questions you're asking yourself, and do your honest best to seek out the answers.
Yeah. And when it comes to something so personal, like, my personal values are informed by my religion, therefore I think gay and trans people need to be sent to the gulag, then I think that you need to actually really look at who is informing your idea of what your religion means.
Yeah. And I think it's important to be like secular when you're talking about that stuff. It's okay to be spiritual. It's okay to have spiritual beliefs in that sort of outlook. But when you talk about injecting your spiritual beliefs into politics and people's material reality, where they're experiencing their own material reality, they're experiencing their own spiritual beliefs. So to have spiritual beliefs kind of imposed upon them through law, I think you're automatically getting into undemocratic, bad territory.
It leads to bad places with bad medicine. Because medicine isn't based around your beliefs. Medicine is based around
the material reality, the hard science, what can be observed, what can be verified
about the human body and the human experience. And so if your beliefs are conflicting with the science, then if you want to hold that for yourself, fine. If you use that to refuse to vaccinate your kids and then they get measles, then you're a cunt.
This is a lot drier a show than I was expecting it to be. You know what I mean? Like I thought we were gonna end up like just getting into like some fiery stuff somehow, but no, this is just like a good old wholesome talk.
But I think that we've covered the most important part.
Yeah.
We've covered that the election's tomorrow. Tell people, because not everyone knows. Make sure you know where you are supposed to vote, because you can't vote outside your riding tomorrow. Make sure if you don't have your voter ID card for your riding, have 2 pieces of ID, one which includes your your address. Go to elections.ca if you're unsure what forms of ID count, because they have all that information there.
Again, if you're asking yourself these questions like, oh, I'm not sure how to vote, you can find the answers. Find the answers. Hell, even like send an email. Okay, there. I put that stuff over there. You even contact me through these avenues and ask me. Satisfy your curiosity.
But I'm gonna get you to post on the YouTube video and on your social media the links to elections.ca and to.
Oh yeah, I wish I did that when I started the stream. But I think I can add that still.
You can.
Yeah.
You
can.
You will. Anyway, so there's still time, right? It's the night before. There's still time. Tomorrow the polls are open for probably about 12 hours. So work out in your schedule how you can get there. If you need any more information, do a little bit of research. Ask him, because I'm unavailable. I'll be working the election.
All right. So that has been our pre-election show. May God have mercy on our souls. And I hope the Conservatives don't win.
I hope Carlton riding flips for the Liberals and that Poilievre loses his seat.
Oh my God, wouldn't that be gold? That would be pretty great. That would be pretty great.
Over the fucking moon.
Let's hope for a liberal minority. That's what I hope for. All right. That has been the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. And follow, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And as always, stay rough.